All right, here we go. This is chapter 8 on global marketing. So for most companies, whether they're large corporate conglomerates or working out of your neighbor's garage, global marketing is becoming a necessity. The demand for foreign products is increasing, both for U.S. products and for foreign products coming over to the United States. So the openness and willingness to use global products, coupled with the use of the internet, has made it possible for every marketer to become an international marketer. You can look at this list here, and you can see some contemplation or some thought here, telling me what you see by looking at country of origin, what industry they're in, and tell me if there's any surprises or not. The internet makes it possible for every marketer to get involved globally. We're going to talk about exporting. And that's when marketing domestically produce goods abroad. So pushing them out of the domestic country into other countries, or importing, which sounds a lot like IN to me. Importing is purchasing the goods abroad, foreign goods, services, or raw materials, and bringing them to the home country. Exporting and importing. Starting with exports. The United States used to export mainly physical goods and agricultural goods back when 90% of the population was farmers, and now only 1.5% of the population is farmers. The share of U.S. exports from service industries continues to increase. Services meaning things like financial services and the entertainment industry, that there's quite the demand for U.S. produced content, movies, TV shows, music, that sort of thing. And travel also counts in this category, and travel is an interesting case. So when foreign tourists come to the United States and they buy stuff, it counts as an export. So think about the things that a tourist would purchase. They need to purchase airfare, they need to stay somewhere, so there's hotel, all the items that they're purchasing, all the souvenirs, all the tours that they go on, all that stuff creates exports. And then I would normally look at this hyperlink, but I'm afraid it's going to mess up, so I'm not. So I encourage you to look at the top 10 U.S. exports and tell me what you see and if there's any surprises. Moving on to imports, so bringing stuff into the home country. This means bringing the things from other countries to the home country. In our case, it's United States, but it's from whatever country you're working out of. This allows for increased access to resources, lower prices. Their labor and cost of materials are just less expensive in other countries. And then that gives us expanded choices as consumers, and we like that. If you don't mind that your product or service comes from a foreign country and cost is what's important to you, then importing is from you. Many U.S. firms chose to manufacture in places such as Mexico or China for these reasons. Manufacturing is lower, labor is lower. And this also gives us other choices. I was just having a conversation with friends about produce at Fred Meyer's, and right now it's not coming from California and Florida, it's coming from foreign countries. And that's how we're able to have raspberries and nice fresh vegetables and Fairbanks in cold winter months. So I ask you these questions for contemplation. What would happen if iPhones were produced in the United States instead of China? And what would happen if the United States stopped making movies and television? And these are the movies, this is the content that is wanted overseas. Moving on to the concept of free trade areas and multinational economic integrations. This is free trade area is where participating nations agree to the free trade of goods among the nations, meaning there aren't any tariffs or trade restrictions. As operations move overseas, workers often find themselves working longer and for less pay. Those people who are making iPhones are not making a lot of money. At the same time, though, that lowers consumer costs and improves company profits and increases product choice. So it's a trade-off by having companies that are working and have manufacturers in other countries. Two examples. One is the WTO, or the World Trade Organization. It's a 164 member organization that oversees trade agreements amongst its members, serves as a forum for trade negotiations, mediates trade disputes, monitors national trade policies, and then works to reduce trade barriers throughout the world. And when there are trade disputes, the WTO decisions are binding on member countries. Countries that seek to become members of the WTO have to go through this rigorous process, and it can last several years. In fact, Russia holds the record for taking the longest to become a WTO member. They applied in 1993 and wasn't approved until 2011. And here on the graphic representation of the map are the countries that belong to the 164 member organization indicated in red or maroon. So it says founding members are in the maroon, subsequent members are in the brighter red in that graphic. Another organization that maybe you're a little more familiar with is the EU, European Union. At this point of this recording in February of 2019, there are 28 countries that make up the EU. Works to remove trade restrictions, permit the free flow of goods throughout the member nations, and promote human rights. There are still countries that want to become members, and there are 6 that have ongoing applications. And there's a population in the European Union, mostly European countries, where 510 million people, and this makes a huge common market. And what's the denomination that they spend in the EU? Didn't quite hear you. And then if you're following the news at all, and why I said this about this being February 2019, is there's the Brexit happening, and I believe March 1st is the deadline for United Kingdom to exit the European Union and stand alone due to a vote that they put towards the people. Okay, so we've explained a little bit about why going global, some free trade agreements and multinational ways to participate multinationally. These are the external environmental factors for the international environment. Little hint here, you've seen these before. We've already gone over these in class for the regular concept. We have economic, technological, social, cultural, and political legal. There's just one missing because we talked about the 5 external factors. So which one do you think is missing? It's not really missing, it's just not listed. And that would be competitive. And maybe that's just because if you are in the international market, you are inherently competing. So that's what I'm going with. So let's pick a country. I'll pick Canada for my first question. What types of products are more likely to succeed in Canada and why? Think about it. And then what types of products are less likely to succeed in Canada and why? And then what issues does a marketer have to consider when marketing to Canada? And let's flip that question around. Maybe it's India. Same thing. So what type of products are more likely to succeed in India, less likely to succeed in India? And then what do marketers have to think about when marketing in that country? All right, let's start with economic of the four environmental factors for international. Start with economic. So it has to do with how geographically large the nation is, per capita income, what stage in economic development. These are all factors that determine if your business, a marketer's business, is going to be successful. So you might think, well, that nation has low per capita income, so I'm not going to go there. But that's only if you have something that's an expensive item. It's an ideal one for something like agricultural hand tools, where like it changes everything if they get a different way to plow the lands or to do laundry that isn't hitting the fabric on a rock. Those are big deals to third world countries. Wealthier countries might offer markets for many U.S. industries for advanced industrial products. So all the drone technology and other types of technology that are going on. Talk about the concept of infrastructure. Infrastructure is the foundation of how things get where they need to get. So it's transportation, communication, banking, utilities, water, electricity, and then public service. So if there's an inadequate infrastructure, then there's going to be some challenges with manufacturing, promoting, and distributing goods. I'm not saying it's a hard no, but that means there's challenges. And then another thing to think about is the exchange rate, whether the dollar is a weak dollar or a strong dollar, and that changes, right? There's nothing consistent about the exchange rate. So an example I would throw out there is the rebuilding of Puerto Rico, even after so much time has passed. It is taking a while to rebuild Puerto Rico. And then how are they rebuilding it? Are they rebuilding it the same? Or they're modernizing it with new technology? What types of businesses are going to be interested in building in Puerto Rico? Construction, technology, utilities. Moving on to international social cultural environment. So before entering a foreign country, you want to think of language, education, what are the religious attitudes, and the social values of a country. Some generalized examples: the French love to debate, and they're comfortable with frequent eye contact. But in China, humility is a prized virtue, and colors have special significance. So you want to do that research and not wear a certain color that offends. And it's insulting to be late in China. So navigating these social norms that are understood in a foreign country takes some time, takes some patience, and a willingness to learn in other cultures. And maybe not just Googling it, but actually doing some research and talking to people, so that you understand the subtle nuances of what's going on in a culture. I'll give you some examples of language issues. These are big companies, right? Coors, Gerber, Mercedes-Benz. You don't think they probably have ever messed up. They have lots of money. There's a concept called back translation, that you would translate the message once into the foreign language and then translate it back into the domestic language, hopefully catching any translation issues. It's called back translation. So here's some funny examples. So Coors is penetrating the Spanish market, and they had a slogan at one time called "Turn It Loose." The Spanish-speaking drinkers were encouraged to get diarrhea. Gerber, they started selling baby food in Africa, and they used the same packaging that they use in the USA. It's shown here in the picture. Well, in Africa, it's very common to put what is inside the jar outside the jar. A picture of what is inside the jar goes outside. Well, you see a picture of a baby on this jar. So that didn't go so well. They're thinking, oh, ground up baby in the jar. And then lastly, Mercedes-Benz entered the Chinese market under the brand name Benzi, B-E-N-S-I. And you translate that, it means rush to die. So nobody wants to rush to die driving a fancy Mercedes-Benz. So even these big companies have made mistakes entering foreign markets, something that you want to be aware of. All right, we're on the third environmental factor, and that's political legal. Global marketers need to stay aware of laws and trade regulations in each country, not only each country, but the country that is their domestic country, the country in which they want to do business, international laws. There needs to be a bigger understanding of all the political and legal laws and issues that are going on. So even though China is quite on the radar for multiple reasons, larger GDP, we're having trade issues with them right now, emerging country, emerging middle class country, even though they have all these advances, they still censor their internet. That's something you need to know if you're a marketer going to the Chinese market. So here's a question for you to give it some thought. Given China's decision to censor the internet, should a company such as Google, who advocates for free speech, do business in China? Then let's take the issue of political conditions. We think we have our own problems here in the US with political. Imagine living someplace else where there's political unrest, like the Middle East or Africa, Greece, South America, where there's acts of violence and destruction of a firm's property, or even deaths on your property from bombings and other violent acts. So these are the things you have to think about, as well as labor conditions as well. Going back to the land of China, the country of China, Chinese laborers have long suffered workplace abuses, including forced labor, withholding of pay, and unfair work practices. So although there's new labor laws, these violations still exist in some areas. Lastly, of the four is technological environment. That's your external environment. And just because of the fact of steep technological advancements, many shoppers are now global shoppers, consumers, having become more comfortable with not only domestic, but international online retail. In fact, over half, 66% of consumers now are willing to shop across borders. So this creates more choice for consumers and more opportunity for marketers. What else? Internet technology has made it possible for both large and small firms. And don't forget that not everybody has internet usage. I think we take it for granted because we're so used to it. But Asia, Europe, and North America, Asia, Europe, and North America together account for about 76% of the world's total internet usage, where Africa, only 9%. It doesn't mean don't go do business there. It means know this as you go to do business there, if you have the right business. There's competitive. See, I was saying that it is sort of inherent with doing international business, that you will compete. So this is what I was saying before about, I got jumped ahead a little bit there. 66% of consumers shop across borders. Here's a real easy example I think you can relate to is McDonald's. You know, those of you who have traveled outside or seen YouTube videos or heard about different offerings at McDonald's in other countries, it's because McDonald's knows how to compete, and they take care of those social cultural values, that there's all kinds of examples of different restaurant menus at McDonald's across other countries. Like they do the poutine in Canada. On India, where there's no meat, they have different options. So go ahead and take a look at the different menu items that McDonald's offers, but they do an excellent job of adapting to the cultural environment. And that's how they compete so successfully across the globe. All right, we're rounding up towards the last few slides. So, all right, you're ready. I'm in. I do want to compete globally. So besides generating additional revenue, the benefits you're going to get might be ideas for new product development, because you're learning how other people are using products, or you're seeing other products used in a different country. New approaches to distribution, new ways of getting the product or service to market, or clever new promotional tactics, and may apply those into your domestic country or into other international markets. So I'm going to take, I'm not going to go over every single one of these in depth, but we're going to sort of brush the surface here of the 3 basic choices of how you penetrate and enter foreign markets. Number 1 being exporting. So it's a low degree of risk, but it's also a low degree of control. Then in the middle is contractual agreements, moderate risk, moderate control. And then at the end of the continuum there is international direct investments, where you have more control, but boy, you have higher risk as well. So that looks like altogether there's about 6 strategies. Exporting, franchising, and foreign licensing is counted as 1. Subcontracting, international divisions, acquisitions, and joint ventures. So let's go over a few of those. Exporting, we talked about it at the beginning of the chapter. Exporting is allowing companies to distribute their goods globally without setting up formal operations in those markets. I want to compete in the global market, but I want to have a domestic home base and send my stuff to other markets in other countries. So this might be the first step in international business. Low degree of risk, but you also have low degree of control. If tariffs go up right now, if you're doing business in China, it's a problem. And you don't have as much control over shipping and distribution, but it is a way to become a player in the global market. Here is contractual agreements, which are in the middle of the road: moderate risk, moderate control. All right, so a couple of ways to do this. Franchising, super easy. So franchising is when you have the rights to sell the products, and you're going to get help from the franchise. You're going to get help from franchise like Anytime Fitness, Subway, a lot of cleaning companies, some of the tax companies. These are all examples of franchises where the mothership franchise company is going to help you. They want you to succeed, but they want you to run the business. And you want to be a small business owner in Puerto Rico or Costa Rica or someplace really cool and fun. So that one way to do that is through franchise. Foreign licensing is on that same plane of moderate control and moderate risk. What this is foreign marketers have the right to distribute a firm's merchandise or to use its trademark, patent, or process in a specified geographic area, because whoever's holds the licensing rights will say, oh, we've got too many people in, Costa Rica, because who doesn't want to have a business there? But we have some open markets in these other areas. And a great example I can think of here that would allow you to do a quick entry into a foreign market with a known product would be the World Poker Tournament. People know what that is around the world, and so you could contact the World Poker Tournament and say, I want to start a business. What are the openings? Where can I do so? And they will allow you to purchase the licensing agreement. Lastly is subcontracting, and that is when the production of goods or service is assigned to local companies. And Nike has done this. So Nike doesn't make everything in the United States. They have factories that are subcontracted out in South Asian countries to manufacture its products. Lululemon too. Look at the tags. Made in Vietnam, made in Asia, made wherever it's made. So this is a way of subcontracting and getting those low labor rates, low manufacture rates. Let's move on to the other end of the continuum. This is high risk, high span of control in international direct investments. Firms that choose this are taking a risk, but they also have high competitive advantage. It can take several forms, such as having an international division, an acquisition, or a joint venture. So for example, Facebook, when they purchased WhatsApp, they did an acquisition. So WhatsApp, if you are not familiar, it's a texting app on your phone where you can text for free internationally. So great way to get away paying usage rates and text rates. And so Facebook, and then this acquisition happened years ago. I'd have to look it up to verify, but this is 2019 at the time of this recording, and it's been at least 4 years. But they acquired, as an acquisition, WhatsApp for $22 billion. So, but Facebook is in a strong enough of a dominant force in the global market that they could take that risk and continue to add to their portfolio. All right, last slide, but let's pay attention to it, shall we? This is the marketing mix. I encourage you to review what marketing mix stands for. 1, 2, 3, 4 P's. I've dropped your hint. So this is your marketing mix strategies. So looking at this grid, on the X, we have our product strategy. On the Y, we have our promotion strategy. So starting with same product, same promotion. That would be, let me catch up here. Straight extension. So our upper left quadrant. So you have the same product and you're going to use the same promotion. So if Starbucks wants to penetrate China, that market, that's a tea drinking culture. So in order to do so, they had to educate the public. They appeal to the new young generation that wants to be more like the US. And so they did so by giving samples of PSL, pumpkin spiced latte. And then next to the cream and sugar, there's brochures that explain to them coffee brewing wisdom and how it all works. So they kept the product the same, they kept the promotion same, they just added an educational component to it. Moving over to the lower left quadrant. So now you have same product, but a different promotion. No tricky labeling here. It's called promotion adaptation. Not very hard. It's the same product, different promotion, adapting the promotion. So Kit Kat, same old yummy chocolate crackly cookie, is going to have the same product, but they were struggling in Japan. And it's pronounced, I'm going to not get this right, kirikatsu. And it's roughly translate into, quote, I hope you win. So there was a rumor that Kit Kat would bring success at school exams where education is highly coveted. So Nestle rolled out packaging, different promotion, that had a good luck charm. And 90% of school kids have heard of the brand, and boom, sales increased by 28%. Same product. Now we're just promoting it differently, that this is going to bring you luck in your exam, and sales increased. Let's move over to our upper right quadrant. So now the promotion's the same. The product has been adapted. No trickiness here. It's called product adaptation. So this can be as easy as changing product packaging size. So in other countries, third world countries, like India, Philippines, and Peru, they want smaller packaging. They can't afford, even though we know that per unit pricing is overall less expensive, they can't afford to buy a big old bottle of shampoo. So Unilever sells single little sachets of shampoo, Sunsilk shampoo, for 2 to 4 cents. And then they have little baby deodorants, Rexona deodorants, for 16 cents. These are big hits. So it's the same promotion. It's going to clean your hair. It's going to make you not smell, but it's a different product, the way that they package it. We wouldn't really want that over in the United States. All right, on the lower right quadrant is dual adaptation. So now you're not only changing the product, you're changing the promotion. So 7-Eleven, right? Convenience store, open 24/7. You just run in and you buy convenience items and some fuel. Well, in Taiwan, they can also fax documents, where faxing is still a big deal. They can go in and pay bills and even settle parking tickets at 7-Eleven. So different things are happening at 7-Eleven in Taiwan. It's a different product adaptation, different promotion. They want you to come in and do business there. And then that last standalone column is new product. And this isn't per se new innovations and new to us products. This is more products that are new to a market. So going back to the third world countries where they're sewing by hand still, that they have non-electric sewing machines that they use with their feet, that's going to be a step up, where that is how people wear their clothes or fix their clothes or make a living from sewing, or even a manually operated washing machine where you are hand cranking it, but they're only $40. That's, again, a step up from washing your clothes in a tub on the rocks and letting them dry. All right, that is it for global marketing. Here is your summary slide. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to take the quiz.